Would anyone even notice if I froze to death on the side of the road tonight? That brutal question slammed into me as the wind howled across the highway, and my tires skidded over black ice. I had been driving for nearly 10 hours through a blizzard, my hands stiff on the wheel, my chest aching with every breath, all for Christmas Eve, all for the chance to see my daughter, Emma, and her husband, Kyle. I told myself the risk was worth it, that a father never spends Christmas alone. That love is proven not by words, but by how much pain you're willing to endure. The gifts rattled in the passenger seat: Emma's winter coat in her favorite shade of green, a boxed guitar tuner for Kyle, who swore music was his future. My heart warmed at the thought of their smiles. By the time I pulled into their driveway in Ohio, my body was trembling, but my spirit was alive. The house glowed against the storm, red and gold lights wrapping the porch, laughter spilling faintly through the windows. I pictured Emma rushing to the door, arms wide, telling me she couldn't believe I made it through the storm. I climbed the steps slowly, every joint screaming, but hope pushing me forward. My hand hovered over the door. That was when I heard it. "I hope he doesn't come." Emma's voice cut through the night, sharp and unrecognizable. Kyle chuckled. "If the snow keeps him away, it'll be the best Christmas we've had. No lectures, no guilt, just peace." My stomach dropped. The cold outside was nothing compared to the freeze that spread through my chest. My daughter's voice, my only child, my entire reason for living, had just wished me away. Tell me, what kind of father keeps standing at the door after hearing that? Chapter 2. The storm had not eased when I turned the key in the ignition that morning. Ice cracked beneath the tires as if the earth itself warned me to stay home. But I couldn't. For weeks, I told myself that no matter how bad the weather was, I would make it to Emma's house for Christmas Eve. I loaded the trunk with carefully wrapped gifts, packed a thermos of black coffee, and set out before dawn on a journey that stretched across nearly 400 miles of snow-covered highways. The first hours felt manageable. The radio hummed with old carols, and the heater coughed warm air into the cabin. But as the miles passed, the snow thickened into a wall of white. Tractor trailers loomed like monsters, their tires spraying slush across my windshield. Each time I tightened my grip on the wheel, my fingers burned with stiffness. Arthritis made every motion a battle. My knees ached each time I shifted between brake and accelerator, a dull fire crawling up my legs. There were moments when the road vanished completely. The headlights only showed a swirling void, and I had to trust memory. Painted lines buried under ice, and the faint taillights of drivers braver or more reckless than me. Every mile felt like walking blindfolded across a frozen lake, waiting for the crack. Still, I pressed on. I told myself Emma would be waiting with hot cocoa, that her children, my grandchildren, would tug at my sleeve and beg me to read them a Christmas story by the fire. I imagined laughter echoing through the rooms, a table filled with roasted turkey, and the kind of warmth that eases the ache in a father's tired bones. But reality was far harsher. At mile 200, my back seized so sharply I had to pull over at a gas station. I sat trembling, gripping the steering wheel until the pain faded to a manageable throb. The attendant offered me a cup of watery coffee and asked if I was sure I should keep driving. I lied, said I was fine, because how could I explain that a father will crawl through hell just to feel wanted for one night? By the time the sun slipped beneath the horizon, my body screamed in protest. My vision blurred with fatigue, every blink heavy as stone. But I swallowed more aspirin, stretched my stiff hands, and pushed forward. The storm had swallowed the world, but I would not let it swallow my promise. I would not allow myself to believe that Emma's home was anything less than the finish line of my suffering. The last 100 miles were agony, My shoulders burned. My teeth clenched against the cold that seeped through even the thickest coat. I drove on, whispering aloud to myself like a madman just to stay awake. Almost there. Sam. Almost there. Don't quit now. The car heater wheezed, my wipers smearing ice instead of clearing it. And still I carried on. Every breath hurt. Every joint throbbed. Yet hope carried me over every mile. I believed that love was waiting. I believed that after all the pain, there would be light in the windows, arms around my shoulders, and words that made the struggle worth it. I had no idea the real pain hadn't even begun. The snow fell in a steady hush when I turned onto their street. My wipers scraped the glass. I parked along the curb and told myself to rest a minute. Then the porch light flickered through the white curtain of night. Hope rose like a match in the wind. I lifted the bag with the coat and the small box with the tuner and walked toward the steps. Fresh powder covered the wood. A cedar wreath swung on the door. Music drifted through the frame. A choir sang Silent Night. I believed I would hear that voice again. I believed it would be kind. Before I could knock, laughter rang. A sharp chime that cut through the carol and through me. I froze with my fist inches from the wood. Then I heard her. Emma. I heard every word. I do not want him here tonight. I cannot take the sad eyes. I cannot do the talk about sacrifice again. He gives and then makes me feel like I owe him my life. Kyle answered. You said it. The old man makes the whole night about him. Gifts laid out like trophies. Advice no one asked for. I want a peaceful evening for once. Peaceful. I pictured the necklace in the bag. I pictured the long drive. I pictured the star map for my grandson. I felt old in a way I never had before. I waited for one kind word to fall and save me. Instead, Emma went on. He called 3 times last week to ask what we needed. We said nothing. Then he sent a photo of wrapped boxes. I have not been a child in a long time. I am tired of being treated like one. Kyle chuckled. Maybe the storm will do us a favor. If he gets stuck at a motel, we can finally have a normal dinner. No lectures about living within our means. No pity talk about how he misses her. He paused. You know who I mean. I knew. He meant her mother. It still hurt to hear it. I looked down at my boots. The leather was white with salt. My toes had gone numb. Emma said she sent a message that morning. Drive safe if you come. Weather looks rough. If he stays home, we will understand. She said she had done her part. A hot pulse moved through my chest. I wanted to knock. I wanted to say I made it. I wanted to say I did not come to be thanked. I came because I cannot bear a table set for one. I came because I am still your father. The music shifted to something bright. Kyle said he could open the good whiskey without half a sermon on moderation. Emma said to family. And then she added the words that will live in me. To a quiet Christmas. No guilt. No rescues. No Sam. The step wobbled under my heel. The cold had crept past my coat and settled between my ribs. I tried to pull a breath in. It did not come easy. I set the gifts on the top step and touched the doorbell with one finger. I did not press it. I pictured the bell singing and Emma turning, her face changing when she saw me. I pictured her opening this door with a small cry and 100 sorries. None of that happened. Only my heart made a dull noise. I backed away. My boots left clean marks in the new snow. I picked up the bag again. I turned once more and looked at the window. In the glass, I saw a pale outline of my daughter. She was smiling. Her hands moved as she spoke. She was bright. Free of me. A sting burned my eyes. I wiped it with my sleeve. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from Emma sat on the screen with a timestamp from that afternoon. Drive safe if you come. Weather looks rough. The words were polite and empty. They looked like a note to a distant coworker. I stared at them until the screen dimmed, and my face stared back in the black glass. I thought of a different door long ago. A small rented house with a crooked step and a paper snowflake taped to the window. Emma was 7. She had made the snowflake at school and begged me to hang it before her mother came home. I had promised her that I would always show up, even when I was tired, even when I was broke, even when the world was loud and cold. I had meant it. Now the porch held a better wreath, and the kitchen held better food. Yet I stood outside. The storm hissed along the gutter. Somewhere down the street a plow groaned and pushed a bright wave of snow past the corner. The house behind me sighed and settled like a sleeping animal. Everything in the world seemed to belong to someone. Only the steps I stood on did not belong to me. I reached the car and rested my head against the cold roof. A part of me said, "Go back and knock." Another part begged me to run. I chose neither. I slid into the seat and watched my breath gather like ghosts. I did not start the engine. Not yet. I let the words settle. "No, Sam." It was a clean cut. Final. I understood that love cannot live where it is treated like a favor. The worst kind of cold is not in the air. It is in a child's voice when she calls you a burden. My hands shook. I wrapped them around the wheel to steady the tremor. The house fell back into a warm glow. It looked safe from every angle but mine. I held the small box in my palm. The paper crinkled. The ribbons stuck to my fingertip. I put it back and closed the bag. I whispered a few words that surprised me. May they be warm. May they be safe. May they never know this kind of cold. Then I turned the key and watched the dash light up. I eased from the curb. At the end of the block, I stopped and looked in the mirror. The house was small now and wrapped in a soft cloud. I waited for the ache to turn me around. The ache was not a rope. It was a door that closed without sound. The drive away from their street was slow, careful, like a man steering not just a car, but the remains of his own heart. The snow blurred every light into a smear of gold. The wipers squeaked across the windshield in a steady rhythm. I let them drown out Emma's words, but they never did. Each pass of the blades repeated them again. "No, Sam. No, Sam." At a red light, I rested my forehead on the wheel. The glow painted my hands crimson. In that moment, memories came uninvited, rushing through me as if the past itself wanted to remind me of all I had given. I thought of the year I sold my small construction company. It was my pride. 30 years of sweat and broken bones. I sold it for less than it was worth because Emma had just graduated. She had debts that choked her. I wrote the check and told her not to worry. A father carries the heavy load so his child doesn't have to. I walked away from a business I had built brick by brick, just to see her smile return. I thought of the time her car broke down on the side of the interstate. She called me sobbing, certain she would lose her job if she couldn't get there. I drove through the night, pushed the wreck into my own driveway, and handed her the keys to mine. For 6 months I rode the bus in the rain while she drove to work in the car I had saved to buy after her mother's funeral. I thought of Derek asking for help with their wedding. His family offered little, and Emma didn't want a courthouse vow. I paid for the reception hall, the photographer, the band that played their first dance. I smiled through every speech, every toast, telling myself it was worth every penny because she deserved a perfect day. The house they live in now, my down payment, the furniture, half of it bought on my card, the grandchildren's private school tuition, my monthly transfer kept it alive. I gave without pause, and I never once asked her for gratitude. I only wanted to belong. Yet, in that warm house, with laughter bouncing off walls I helped pay for, my daughter wished me gone. I pulled into my own driveway long after midnight. The house looked small and hollow in the snow. No wreath, no lights. I unlocked the door and stepped inside, where the silence pressed heavy against my chest. I set the bag of gifts on the floor. They leaned against the wall like orphans no one wanted. In the study, the air smelled of leather and dust. Files lined the shelves. Contracts, bank statements, old letters. My life's work distilled into paper. I pulled a folder from the cabinet. My will, last updated in spring. Emma was the sole heir. 2 million in insurance. Investments. The house. Everything pointed to her name. I spread the papers across the desk. The ink blurred as my eyes filled. For 15 years since my wife's death, every decision had been for Emma. Every dollar. Every choice. Every plan. I thought I was building a fortress of love around her. In truth, I had built a cage around myself. The clock ticked past 2. My hands trembled as I reached for a calculator. I began to add every check, every transfer, every gift, tuition, down payments, monthly deposits, emergencies. The total grew into a figure that stunned me hundreds of thousands over the years. Nearly everything I had. And still, to her, I was not a father to cherish but a weight to cast off. I leaned back and let the dark room swallow me. The storm outside rattled the windows. But the real storm was inside. Something shifted that night. A cold resolve settled deeper than grief. If Emma believed I was only a wallet, then she would learn what life looked like without one. If she thought a father's love could be mocked and discarded, then she would feel its absence like a blade. The pen felt heavy in my hand as I circled her name on the will. My thumb hovered, then pressed hard, drawing a line straight through it. That was the first cut, and it would not be the last. Christmas morning did not arrive with light. It arrived with a gray stillness that made the house feel like a place time had forgotten. I woke on the sofa with a blanket half over my legs and the lamp still on. The gifts leaned in the corner where I had left them. The ribbon had slipped loose on one box. The sight pricked at me like a thorn. I folded the blanket, turned off the lamp, and stood alone in the quiet. I brewed coffee and could not taste it. The cup warmed my hands but not my chest. Outside, the street was a sheet of white. A plow rumbled by and left a high ridge at the end of my drive. I watched the driver wave at a neighbor and then move on. It struck me that everyone had a place to be except me. I had spent years building a center for my family, and now I stood at the edge of it. I carried the gifts to the study and set them on the desk. The little box with the necklace looked almost embarrassed to be seen. I opened a drawer and took out my file again. The will, the insurance, the list of accounts I had created to make Emma's life smooth. The totals stared back at me. They looked like a second language that I should not have learned. The pen I left beside the papers last night was still there. I picked it up and felt the weight of it. I made a list on a clean pad. Not a list of memories this time. A list of actions. Call an attorney and change the will. Stop the automatic transfers that left my account each month. Remove my name from any joint lines that could pull me into debt I did not make. Change beneficiaries on policies that assumed love would never turn careless. Create distance where there had been only giving. The phone lay on the table. I scrolled to the name of a lawyer who had helped me after my wife passed. His office would be closed for the holiday. But I left a message in his system. I stated my full name. I asked for an appointment as soon as the first business day opened. I said I needed to update my estate plan and my beneficiaries. I spoke clearly and kept my voice level. When I hung up, my hands shook for a moment, then stilled. I thought about who should receive what I had saved. Not a person who viewed me as a duty. Not a person who wished me away. I wanted the money to do work I could respect. I searched gently through names in my head. A hospice fund that had cared for my wife with tenderness. A community shelter that kept old dogs from dying alone in cages. A lake rescue group that pulled strangers from winter water. People and animals who did not mock love. I wrote 3 names down. I underlined them. The doorbell did not ring. No one came by with pie on a paper plate. No neighbor knocked to ask if the storm had been hard on me. I learned in that span of hours how thin the circle had grown around my life. I had made my daughter the circle. I had made her into the sun. The lesson came clean and hard. Nothing thrives when you place it too close to a single fire. I took the necklace from its box and held it up to the light. It caught a weak ray and threw a soft shine on the wall. I pictured Emma wearing it. Then I pictured her mouth forming the words I did not want to remember. The shine faded. I set the necklace back in its nest. I closed the lid. I placed the box in the lower drawer and shut it with a quiet click. Midday arrived. I did not cook. I ate a slice of bread and an apple because it was simple. I stood at the sink and looked at the yard that my wife once loved to tend. Bare oak branches sketched the sky. Snow weighted each limb like quiet grief. For a moment I felt the house as it had been when she was here. Laughter warmed the walls. Her voice floated down the hall. Emma was small and bright and wanted to show us a paper snowflake. The memory did not hurt. It glowed. Then it faded, and I was back in the present. I went to the hallway closet and lifted a small metal box from the top shelf. Old messages. Thank you cards from clients. A letter from a teacher who wrote about Emma's kindness in second grade. I ran my thumb over the edges and set the box on the table. I did not open it. I did not need to. The man who kept those letters alive inside him would still exist. He would just stop pretending that love must always be paid out in advance. By afternoon, the sky darkened again. The storm circled back. I put on my coat and hat and stepped into the cold. The air burned my lungs. I shoveled the drive slowly. Each scoop bit the edge of my back and pulled at my shoulders. I kept going until I had cleared a path. I wanted the path to mean something. I wanted it to be more than a strip of clean concrete. I wanted it to be the first line of a new map. Back inside, I washed my hands and dried them on a towel that still smelled faintly of detergent and lemon. I sat at the desk and dialed the number on the back of my bank card. A soft, recorded voice asked for numbers and confirmations. I spoke with a woman named Lila when the prompts ended. I told her I needed to end several transfers and to remove my name from a joint account. She asked if everything was all right. I said that it would be. She said the changes would take effect within 48 hours. She wished me a peaceful holiday. I thanked her and ended the call. I wrote more lines on the pad. Contact the insurance company on Tuesday. Update the beneficiaries. Ask the attorney to set up a charitable trust that cannot be undone by tears or pressure. Review the deed to my house and the titles to my car. Remove Emma from any place where my name could be used to bail someone out of a poor choice. Evening came. I turned on the tree I kept out of habit and watched the small lights blink. It was not a grand tree, just a simple one with white lights and a few wooden stars. I stood there and let grief move through me without fighting it. Grief is a river. If you try to dam it, it will carve a new path through your bones. If you let it pass, it leaves a clean bed for something else. I took a deep breath and spoke the truth into the room. I do not want revenge. I want respect. I want quiet. I want to stop begging a grown child to love me with patience. I want to reclaim the part of me that knows how to stand without leaning. The room held the words and did not argue with them. Night pressed against the windows. I climbed the stairs and paused outside the empty room that still held a few boxes from the past. I flicked on the light. On the dresser stood a framed photograph of Emma at 7, with a gap in her smile from a missing tooth. I touched the glass with 2 fingers. I felt no bitterness. Only a clear line between then and now. I turned off the light and went to bed early. The list lay on the nightstand. The pen rested beside it. I closed my eyes and listened to the house settle. The storm softened to a whisper. Somewhere far away, a train horn floated through the cold. I fell asleep with one firm thought. I would teach by absence what my presence had failed to teach. I would remove the cushion that had kept my daughter from ever feeling the ground. When morning came, the decision would not be a mood, it would be a plan. The Monday after Christmas broke with a pale sky and a silence so complete I could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. I rose before dawn, washed my face, and dressed as if I were heading to work, though I had nowhere to go. Old habits have their weight. I poured coffee and sat at the desk where the list from the night before waited. The first line glared at me. Stop! I dialed the bank again, this time speaking with a manager. I told her I wanted every automatic deposit to my daughter's account canceled. She asked if I was sure. I said yes. She asked if I wanted to notify the joint holder. I said no. The changes, she promised, would be in effect by the 10th of the month. I thanked her, hung up, and leaned back in the chair. For the first time in 15 years, the rope of obligation had slackened. The 10th came faster than I expected. I imagined Emma at the grocery store, her cart filled with fruit, meat, and bottled water, the card in her hand. I pictured the moment the register flashed decline. I pictured the small frown forming between her brows. Then the call she would make. That afternoon, the phone rang exactly as I had foreseen. Dad. Her voice trembled with confusion. My card didn't work. The bank said the account is closed. Can you call them? There must be a mistake. He was a Braga. I let it go to voicemail. An hour later, another call. Dad. It happened again. We can't pay rent if this isn't fixed. Derek's voice echoed in the background. Sharp. Accusing. Tell him he has to fix it now. We can't be left like this. And thus, 7 calls came before evening. Each one tighter, faster, more desperate. By the 5th, Emma's voice was thin and raw. By the 7th, Derek was shouting over her shoulder, blaming her for angering me, blaming me for betrayal. The irony made me almost laugh. For years, I had been nothing but a lifeline. And in one day of absence, I became their enemy. I brewed tea and listened to each message like a man studying reports. My notes filled a yellow pad. Tone. Excuse. Bank error. Request money now. The pattern was clear. They did not see love. They saw supply. They did not hear silence. They heard punishment. By Sunday, the calls doubled. Emma's words cracked under the weight of fear. Dad, please. I don't know what's happening. The insurance card didn't work either. Derek is furious. He says you're punishing us. But I don't understand what we did. Haideen. I stared out the window while her voice filled the room. Snow draped the trees. Children across the street, laughing until their breath made clouds. Normal lives carried on while mine bent into something sharper. On Monday, a final message landed. Dad, I'm coming over. I need to see you face to face. Noon. Her voice was firmer now, a mix of fear and resolve. I smiled. At last, necessity would drag her to my door. Not for love, not for a hug, but for survival. When I ended the voicemail, the room felt colder than the frost outside. This was only the first lesson. There were more to come. The card decline was just the crack in the ice. Soon, the whole surface would give way beneath them. And for the first time in their lives, they would have to learn how to swim. I woke before sunrise and opened the curtains to a sky the color of old steel. Emma had said noon. She would come and demand answers. I had work to finish before the bell rang. One cut to the money was not enough. I drove to the public library when the doors unlocked. The heat smelled like paper and dust. I chose a computer near the back and typed slowly. My hands ached. but the ache kept me clear. I found the government page that accepts reports of hidden income. The form opened with calm boxes. I filled them with facts. I wrote Derek Wilson. I wrote their address. I wrote that he sells paintings for cash at weekend markets. I wrote that I saw envelopes of money that never reached a return. I listed dates. I named the market. I gave a fair estimate. Not a number pulled from anger. A number pulled from memory. I read the text twice and sent it. A confirmation code appeared. I copied it into my notebook. I did not feel joy. I felt order. You cannot build a life on a lie and call it art. Next, I created an email that could not be traced to me. I opened the contact pages for their credit cards and loans. I wrote a single line. Family support has ended. Please update risk and remove any silent guarantors. It was not cruel. It was true. When love pays the bill, it does not read as debt. When love stops, the ledger appears. On my way home, I stopped by the post office. I mailed 3 letters with no return address. 1 to the landlord. 1 to the market coordinator. 1 to the salon manager where Emma worked. Each note was short. Please verify income before extending favors. Please ensure tax compliance from all vendors. Please be mindful of client comfort. No threats. No insults. Just light in a corner. The first call came at 3. Emma tried to sound calm. Dad, did you change something on the insurance? The card failed at the pharmacy. We had to leave the medicine on the counter. I let the message end. At 5, another message arrived. A government office sent Derek a letter. He thinks it is nothing. He says someone is making trouble for us. Dad, if you know something, please call me back. By evening, the tone shifted. Derek shouted in the background. A neighbor mentioned official mail. Someone posted in the community group about late fees and property values. He demanded I fix this. Emma cried and asked me to answer. I set the phone down and watched the snow ease against the window. Near midnight, I stared at the list on my desk. 1 line remained. Prepare for noon. I wrote 3 words beneath it. Do not explain. Morning came clean and bright. I swept the front step. I made tea. I set 2 chairs with space between them. At 11:59, a car pulled into my drive. Emma's fist hit the bell once. Then twice. I opened the door. Derek stood behind her with his jaw set tight. I moved aside and they entered. Dad, we need to talk. Her voice was thin but steady. Derek crossed his arms. He wanted a fight. He would not get one. I sat and waited. Emma broke first. Why did the bank shut us off? Why is the insurance not working? Why is there a letter with an official seal on our table? I did not answer. Derek stepped forward. You are behind this. You want us to suffer until we crawl. You want control. That is sick. I kept my voice low. I want truth. I want respect. I want you to stand on your own feet. That is not cruelty. That is gravity. Emma blinked hard. Are people spreading rumors about us? Clients are canceling. Neighbors are strange. Did you tell someone? I met her eyes and said nothing. Silence carries a mirror. In silence, you see the shape of your own choices. Derek's anger broke into panic. The audit is a scare. The credit freeze is a glitch. The landlord cannot ask for proof. He looked at Emma with a pleading I had never seen. Say something. Make him stop. She looked at me instead. For a long moment, no one spoke. Snow slid from the roof with a soft thud. My tea cooled. Emma's voice, when it came, was small. Dad, if we have done something wrong, tell us how to make it right. I can work more hours. We can sell things. We can move to a smaller place. Just tell us we are not alone. I wished I could give her the promise she wanted. I could not. The promise had been spent years ago, on days when she could have learned and did not. I walked them to the door. Emma reached for my sleeve. Please. I held her gaze. Learn, then come back. They left without slamming the door. The car idled for a minute and rolled away. I checked the last line on the list. The work was not finished, but the foundation had shifted. That evening, my phone lit again. Dad. The salon manager asked me to take the week off while they review client feedback. There have been complaints about the atmosphere. Derek thinks the neighbors will avoid us. He says we should leave town for a while. I turned off the phone and laid it face down. Outside, the snow had stopped. The streetlights hummed. In the new quiet, I felt both lighter and older. I had chosen the hard path. It was the only path that led out of the storm. By the end of that week, the first cracks widened into fractures. Emma's voice filled my machine each evening, breaking in new ways I had never heard. She started with confusion, moved to panic, and slid into despair. The salon had been her anchor. But even anchors rust when water keeps rising. Dad. 3 clients canceled today, she said one night, her voice trembling. My manager asked if there's something distracting me. She said people were whispering about our finances. I don't know how they know. Did you tell someone? I let the message fade into silence. It was not my place to answer questions she already knew. The world had been patient with her lies. But patience has a clock. By Wednesday, Derek stormed into the background of the calls. This is coordinated, he shouted. Someone is spreading rumors about us. The IRS letter, the credit freeze, now the salon. Someone wants us ruined. His rage was loud, but fear was louder. The neighbors shifted too. A woman named Joyce, who once waved at Emma every morning, now turned away when their paths crossed. A post appeared on the community board. Anyone else? Notice the Wilsons getting unusual official mail. Hope it doesn't affect our property values. Within hours, comments piled on. People remembered late-night arguments, repossessed cars, raised voices. Pieces that had been ignored now formed a picture no one wanted to look at. Emma called again that night. Dad. Mrs. Henderson walked right past me without a word. She used to bring cookies every Christmas. Now she won't meet my eyes. What's happening? Why does everyone know what we're going through? Her voice cracked like thin ice. I wrote her words down, line by line, on the yellow pad, not out of cruelty, but because truth deserves to be recorded. She was finally tasting what I had swallowed for years. Being invisible, being unwanted, being dismissed. By Friday, the hammer fell. Emma's manager sat her down and told her the truth she didn't want to hear. Clients no longer felt comfortable. The whispers had become too loud. Her employment was terminated. The message she left me after was hollow. A shell of the confident woman she once pretended to be. Dad, I lost my job. They said it was about the salon's reputation. Derek is furious. He says we should leave town. Maybe stay with his brother until this blows over. I don't know what to do. As for gratitude, I listened twice, then set the phone down. The sound of her despair should have broken me. But it didn't. It only confirmed what I already knew. Without respect, everything crumbles. By the weekend, she called again. This time her words were slow, tired, resigned. No one will talk to me. Not at the store. Not at church. Not in the neighborhood. It's like we've been erased. I've never felt so untouchable. As her breath hitched, a small sob broke free. Then silence. I sat in the dim light of my study and let the weight of her words sink in. For the first time in years, I felt no urge to rush in and rescue. Rescue had become poison. And poison had taken root. Now she would learn what survival really means. The fall was not over. It had only begun. They arrived on a Tuesday, when the sky was the color of tin and the wind scraped the bare maples. The doorbell rang once. Then again. I had been ready since dawn. 2 chairs in the living room. A small table between them. A pot of tea breathing steam. Space enough for Truth to sit down. Emma stood on the porch without makeup and without her old brightness. Winter had rubbed the shine off her. She twisted her gloves until they looked like rope. Derek hovered behind her with anger and fear taking turns on his face. I opened the door and stepped aside. The smell of cold came in with them and settled around our ankles. We sat. I let the silence take the first word. Silence is honest. It does not flatter. It does not bargain. Emma broke before the tea cooled. Dad, please tell me what is happening. The bank. The insurance. Clients canceling. The letter with an official seal. Why now? Why all at once? I poured tea into her cup, and then into mine. The steam fogged the air between us. She did not touch her cup. Derek leaned forward. He did not ask. He accused. This is you. The timing gives you away. You pull the strings. Money to start. Money to stop. You want to teach us a lesson by putting our lives on fire. Is that it? I set my cup down. My fingers left a clean circle on the table where the heat had touched the wood. I did not answer Derek. I looked at Emma. She had her mother's eyes when she was small. They used to flood with joy at the smallest kindness. They had not flooded in years. Emma's voice shook. Tell me what to do and I will do it. I will work anywhere. I will sell the car. I will move. I will listen. Just do not leave me alone in this. The truth would not let me say I had never left her. Help had become a ceiling she refused to push through. Help had turned her into a person who waited instead of built. Derek slapped his knees and stood. Enough of the quiet routine. You cut us off and now everything is collapsing. You think that makes you noble. It makes you cruel. We are family. I raised a palm for him to sit. He paced behind Emma's chair. A caged motion in a small room. I spoke at last. Not to Derek, but to my daughter. Find work that pays every Friday. Pay 1 bill without help. Cook every meal in your own kitchen for a month. Sleep in a place you can afford with only your name on the lease. When you have done that, come back and tell me how it feels. The words were plain. Not punishment. A doorway. Emma stared at me as if I had handed her a map in a language she had never learned. She swallowed. Is that all? Is there nothing else I can say to make you change this? I shook my head once. Her mouth trembled. Tears brightened, then brimmed. She did not wipe them. Derek leaned over her shoulder. So you admit it. You are behind the audit. Behind the landlord. Behind the whispers. Say it. I did not give him what he wanted. Some answers do not build anything. They only feed a fire. Emma spoke again. Softer now. As if asking a stranger for directions. Are we still your family? I felt the old ache rise. I let it pass. Then I gave her the truest answer I had. Family is proved by what you do when no one is watching. The room shifted with those words. Emma closed her eyes like someone who had been cut. Derek cursed under his breath and turned away. I stood. I went to the hall closet and took out a wool scarf that had belonged to my wife. I placed it in Emma's hands. The wool still held a faint scent of cedar. Emma looked at it the way you look at something you want to deserve. You will be cold when you leave. I said, take this. She pressed the scarf to her mouth and nodded. Her shoulders shook once, twice. She pulled herself together as if stitching a seam from the inside. Derek finally sat. But not from respect. From exhaustion. Emma rose. Thank you for seeing us. We will figure it out. Her voice told me she did not know how. It also told me she knew I would not do it for her. At the door, she turned. Dad, I know I have disappointed you. I want to make it right. I do not know how yet, but I will try. I nodded. Trying is the first honest currency. They stepped into the brightness of the snow. The cold rushed in and then the door shut it out. I watched them cross the walk and get into the car. Derek gripped the wheel. Emma wrapped the scarf once, twice, 3 times, as if building shelter out of a single piece of cloth. The car reversed and paused at the curb. For a heartbeat, I thought she might look back. She did not. She stared forward and set her jaw. The brake lights went dark. In the quiet that followed, I carried the untouched cup of tea to the sink and poured it away. The pale stream looked like a winter river running into the drain. I rinsed the cup and set it on the rack. In the living room, the chair where Emma had sat still held the soft dent of her weight. I touched the fabric and felt the warmth fading. The house made its old settling sounds. I returned to the desk and wrote a single line on the yellow pad. She heard me. Outside, snow began again. Light as ash. Inside, a thin thread of peace coiled through the ache and tied a small knot. The days that followed slid one into another, like ice sheets breaking loose. I kept no calendar. Yet, I knew each shift by the tone of the messages that landed on my phone. Emma's voice no longer carried the polish of denial. It cracked in places she could not hide. Dad, we tried to pay the mortgage. The bank refused partial payment. They want everything current by the 15th. We don't have it. What should we do? Another message hours later. Derek's voice cutting over hers. This is punishment. Admit it. You want us crawling. Well, here we are. His anger rang hollow. The kind that grows when fear stands behind it. By the second week of January, the fracture lines inside their marriage showed. Emma spoke alone, whispering as if hiding in her own house. Dad, he blames me. He says I angered you. He says I ruined everything. I can't sleep. I can't think straight. Please, just tell me how to fix it. It is Ma. I wrote each word into my notebook, not as evidence to use against her, as a record of how dependency corrodes even love. Then came the message that silenced me in a different way. Dad, I lost my job. They said clients feel uncomfortable. They said my personal life is too distracting. I gave them everything. And now I have nothing. Please, if you can help just with rent until I find another job. Her breath hitched into sobs. The line went dead. I set the phone aside and stared at the study walls. The awards. The photographs. The old certificates from years when my work meant something beyond family. They reminded me that respect is not inherited. It is earned and maintained. Somewhere along the years, Emma stopped seeing that truth. Now life would etch it into her skin whether she wanted it or not. The following week, Derek left a message in a voice stripped of bluster. Ernest, we're 3 months behind on everything. If we lose the house, it's on you. You made us rely on you all these years. You can't just disappear now. That's not what a father does. Say, I listened twice. Then shut the phone off. He had revealed himself in a single sentence. Reliance had never been his shame. It had been his strategy. And Emma had been his partner in it. By February, the unraveling was complete. Emma stood on my porch one morning, thinner than I remembered. Her coat buttoned wrong. Her face pale. Derek was gone. He had taken his canvases, his paints, and what little pride he had left, and fled to his brother's place in Cleveland. Emma's eyes brimmed, but no tears fell. He said he can't take living like this. He said I dragged him down. Dad, he left me. Her voice broke on the last word. She steadied herself on the porch railing. I opened the door, but did not step aside. She searched my face for sympathy, for rescue, for the father who had always thrown a rope. Instead, I asked, "What will you do now?" She blinked, as though struck. "I don't know. I can't do this alone. I would find them." "You can," I said quietly. "And you must. I would find them." Her lips trembled. "I'm begging you. Just this once. Please." "I would find them." I shook my head. The ache inside me was sharp. But sharper still was the truth. If I gave her one more lifeline, she would never learn to swim. She wept then. Softly. Not the theatrical sobs of guilt, but the raw sound of someone staring at the bottom of her own choices. I closed the door gently. Through the window I saw her stand in the snow for a long time, shoulders hunched, clutching her coat as if it were the last shield she owned. Then she walked away down the street, her figure small against the white. Inside, the silence returned, heavier than before, yet beneath it, I felt something firm like the slow settling of earth after an earthquake, a foundation beginning to form. I sat at my desk and wrote another line in the notebook. She is alone now, and she must learn what aloneness teaches. The letter from the IRS arrived at their house in March. I knew because Emma's voice cracked through my machine before noon that day. "Dad, they want Derek's records. They say there's suspicion of unreported income. He's furious. He says only you would know. Did you tell them?" Her sobs cut the message short. By then, Derek had already abandoned her. He left with bitterness packed into his car along with his brushes and canvases. She was truly alone. That isolation ripened into a deeper kind of panic. The community had turned cold. Her job was gone. And now, the government circled like a hawk. She came to my house one Sunday afternoon. No warning. No message first. Just a pounding on the door with fists that shook. When I opened it, she looked 10 years older. Her cheeks were hollow. Her coat frayed at the cuffs. "Dad, please. I can't take it anymore," she begged. "Tell me what's happening. Tell me what I did that made you turn against me." "No." I gestured toward the living room. She sat on the same chair where her mother once embroidered quilts, the fabric now worn thin. Her eyes darted around as if the walls themselves accused her. I took out my phone and scrolled to a file I had labeled carefully. The 24th of December. I set it on the table between us. "Listen," I said. I pressed play. Her own voice spilled into the room, cruel and sharp despite the faint laughter in it. "I hope he doesn't come. Maybe the storm will keep him away. And know them." Kyle's voice followed, mocking and careless. One Christmas without him would be a blessing. No lectures, no guilt. And know them. The sound was unmistakable. Her own words rose like a ghost she could not banish. Emma's face drained of color. She covered her mouth with both hands, as if she could push the words back inside her body. Tears ran fast down her cheeks. You heard all of that?" "Every word," I said. My voice was steady, calm, like stone. "I didn't mean it," she stammered. "We were just talking. I was tired. Derek was..." "Don't." I cut in. "Excuses are cheap." Those words told me the truth. That night, while I stood on your porch with gifts in my hands, you laughed about how you hoped I wouldn't survive the drive. That was what I meant to you. And an emblée. Her sobs shook the chair. "Please, Dad. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I would take it back if I could. I would cut out my tongue if it meant you could forget." And an emblée. I leaned forward, my eyes holding hers. "You cannot take back a knife once it cuts. You cannot pull poison from the blood after it spreads. The wild down the money, she bent forward, clutching her knees, weeping until her whole body shook. Then tell me what to do. Tell me how to make you forgive me. The wild down the money. I sat back. My hands were calm on my lap. Forgiveness is not given like money from a wallet. It must be earned. You must build a life that does not lean on me. You must learn gratitude without my hand at your back. Until then, there is nothing more to say. The wild down the money. She looked up, her face streaked, her lips trembling. So you're really leaving me with nothing? I met her gaze with silence. Sometimes silence is louder than rage. She understood then. I saw it in the collapse of her shoulders, in the way her eyes lost their fight. She rose slowly, clutching her coat, and walked to the door. Her voice was faint when she said, I wish I had never spoken those words. I wish I had known how much they would cost me. Then you clanged it wishin'. The door closed behind her. The echo carried through the house like the toll of a bell. I sat in the chair she had left, the air still trembling with her cries, and wrote a single line in my notebook. She has seen the truth. But the lesson is not finished. 6 months do not sound long when you say the words out loud. They feel long when you live inside them day by day. Winter loosened its grip on the town. Spring came in with cold rain and soft light. By May, the lake took the sky again. Boats moved slow on the water. I learned how to breathe without wishing for what could not return. I kept the promises I wrote on that yellow pad. I met with my attorney and changed the will. I moved the beneficiaries to places that would not laugh at love. A hospice fund that had held my wife with gentle hands. A rescue center that brought tired dogs out of cages and taught them to trust. A small grant for the lake patrol that watches the ice in March. The paperwork took a morning. The calm that followed took root. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I drove to River County Animal Rescue. The building was plain brick with a blue door. Kennels lined one wall. A washer thumped in the back. The air smelled like bleach and wet fur. I learned the names of the anxious ones and the slow ones, and the ones who pressed their weight against the gate for a touch. I cleaned bowls. I swept floors. I walked dogs along the fence line and talked to them as if they could answer. A brown mutt with a white muzzle chose me. She was wiser than I was. She watched the room with old eyes and then sat at my feet. I named her Mabel because the sound was soft and brave at the same time. She followed me from kennel to kennel and waited when I bent to tie a leash. When I sat, she put her head on my knee with a trust that did not ask for proof. After a month, the staff printed adoption papers and asked if I was sure. I was. I took her home and she slept that first night at the door of my room as if she had always known the place. June brought thick heat and slow evenings. I mowed and trimmed and set a chair in the shade. I made simple dinners. Eggs, pasta, bread with olive oil. I ate on the back steps while the day faded and the cicadas sang. Some nights the ache tried to pull me backward. I let it pass through. I had a new rule. I could look at the past, but I would not live there. One morning in late June, a white envelope waited in my mailbox with my name written in a hand I knew. The letters were steadier than before. I stood at the kitchen sink and opened it with my thumb. I read each line and then read them again. Dear Dad, I am not asking for anything. I am not asking for money. I am not asking for forgiveness. I am writing to tell you what has changed and who I am trying to be. I do not know if this matters to you. I hope it does. If it does not, I accept that. I moved out of the studio above the laundromat. I found a room in a small building near the bus stop on Willow Street. The walls are thin, but the light in the morning is kind. I pay the rent myself on the first day of each month. I keep a notebook to track every bill. I cook at home. I make soup on Sundays and it lasts 3 days. I buy fruit when it is on sale. I fold the receipts and put them in an envelope. This is small to others. It is not small to me. I work full-time at Lakeside Grocer. I stock shelves on the early shift. I am there when the truck arrives. I sign for the order with my name. My feet hurt by 9 in the morning, and I sleep well at night. I like greeting the regulars. There is a woman who always buys the same cereal. There is a teacher who tells me when he is out of chalk. I did not see people this way before. Now I do. I paid off a past due bill last month by selling my last new dress. It stung for 1 minute. Then I felt strong. I had always thought strength was loud. I am learning that strength is quiet. It is getting up at 6 when no one is watching. It is saying no to what I cannot afford. It is looking at a price tag and taking it as the truth. I meet with a counselor on Wednesdays. We sit in a small office that smells like paper and coffee. She does not let me hide. She asked me to write the words I said on Christmas Eve 10 times on a page. I cried while I wrote them. I am not blaming you for anything that followed. I own what I said. I own how I took from you without counting cost. I own how I let Derek talk for me. He will not talk for me again. Derek called in April. He wanted to meet. I said no. He said he wanted to try again. I said no. He said I owed him. I said I owe myself a life I can respect. I hung up and sat on the floor and shook. Then I stood and washed a sink full of dishes. I did not call him back. I know about your will. I tried to contest it when I was angry. Your attorney told me the date. January. Before the audit. Before the job went away. Before the other losses. That date woke me up. It told me the first change was inside you, not in the world around me. I respect your choice. I am not writing to ask for any of it. I am writing to tell you I will not live as if it belongs to me. I volunteer 2 hours a week at the rescue where you help. I do not go on your days. I sweep and fold blankets and fill bowls. Sometimes I walk a small terrier who jumps at every sound. I am gentle with him. Someone told me about a brown dog who guards your bedroom door. I smiled. I am glad you have a friend. I think about Mom. I think about the paper snowflake I made in 2nd grade. I think about the way you clapped at my games until your hands were red. I do not know how I grew into a person who could say what I said last December. I know I am not her now. I cannot undo what I did. I can only live in a way that would have made Mom proud and might make you less ashamed of me. If we never speak again, I want you to know this. I am working. I am paying my way. I am growing up at last. Love. Emma. The kettle began to sing and I forgot it. Mabel lifted her head from the rug and leaned against my leg. I read the letter again from start to finish. The words were plain. No bargain. No plea. It was the truest letter my daughter had ever written. I did not rush to call her. I did not write that night. I walked Mabel around the block as the day cooled. The air smelled like cut grass and lake wind. A boy rode past on a bike with a fishing pole tied to the frame. An old couple waved from their porch. Life moved in its simple stride. Somewhere inside my chest. A long knot loosened by a small degree. At the rescue that weekend, I brought a box of new leashes. The staff thanked me and told me that Emma did good work on Wednesdays. They said she stayed after her shift to calm a dog that would not stop shaking. I held that picture in my mind. It was not a girl in a dress. It was a woman in a plain shirt with her hands steady on a nervous animal. It was more beautiful than roses. In September, another envelope came in the same steady hand. It was short. She said she had passed 3 months without missing a bill. She said she had saved $100. She said she had learned to mend a seam and to fix a leaky faucet with a small kit. She said she had learned to say no to herself. She hoped I was well. She did not ask to visit. She said she would wait until I was ready or never. Either way, she would keep going. I placed that letter with the first and closed the drawer. I did not feel triumph. I did not feel revenge. I felt a level place inside me that did not tilt toward rescue or control. I took Mabel for a walk and watched cottonwood fluff drift across the street like slow snow. One evening I drove to the lake after the sun went down. The sky held a pale band above the dark water. I sat on a bench with Mabel at my feet and listened to the shore take and give. I thought about the man who stood on a porch last winter with gifts in his hands and hope in his throat. I thought about the man who drew a pen line through a name. I thought about the man who fills water bowls and ties new leashes to old collars. All of them are me. The difference now is that I know which one I want to be. I do not know if I will ever open my door to Emma again. I do not know if we will sit at my table and pass bread and talk about the weather without pain. I know this. Love that is not respected turns into a slow harm. Boundaries are not walls. They are edges that keep love from drowning. I will keep mine. If we meet in the space between her work and my quiet, I will be grateful. If we never do, I will still be grateful. I lived through the winter. I learned how to breathe. I found a small, steady life that does not need permission to exist. Mabel sighed in her sleep. I rubbed the top of her head. The lake pushed and pulled with its old, steady sound. I closed my eyes and waited. At last, the noise inside my rib cage matched the soft rhythm on the shore. Not joy. Not sorrow. Something clean. Something that could last.